being together again. It's nice to see everyone, even if it's not in person. Today we're going to go through here on our agenda, and I'm sure you all have yours in front of you. But first we're going to do a review of the agenda with corrections and additions. We have one correction. We will be taking new business C, the abuse molestation policy. We're going to take that off as an action item. We're still waiting to hear some things back, so we're going to move that to a future meeting. Do we have any other additions, corrections for the meeting tonight? Okay,
move to approve.
On the agenda, we don't have to approve.
We don't?
That
okay,
one.
I'm good.
But we do need to do approval of minutes of the previous meetings. That is an action item.
Move to approve.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Do we have a second? Thank you, Jim. So all those in favor, please signify by holding up your hand. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are good. All right, so that was unanimous. Moving to do approval of expenditures. Would someone like to move the approved expenditures? Yes, Terry.
Move to approve expenditures in the amount of $112,421.77.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Here we go.
I'll just note we don't have copies of the payroll runs.
Okay.
Right.
So
I just realized that I can get that number if you'd like, or we can pick it up next time. Either one.
I think at this point we can pick it up next time unless there's anyone has a concern.
I have it printed sitting on my desk, I'm sure.
So we'll come back to that one. We'll just ask, Brian, we don't have any undue or unexpected payroll issues, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Moving on to next item, President's Report. So I want to start by thanking NPL staff. Sorry, I went to a different NPL there for a second. The Normal Public Library staff for all that they do. Recognize that last week was National Library Workers Day. So we thank them for what they do and what they have done and for the amazing job and tenacity and spirit of go get it done and dealing with the new situation that they've given over this past couple of weeks as we are in this new environment. So please share with them our thanks and our appreciation. And then I don't know if others have had patrons reach out to them during this time. I will share I've had one patron reach out asking questions about, well, when we might reopen and how they missed the library, which was very nice. I did point out that we are trying to be very cautious, not only following what the governor has given, but we also have been following CDC and want to make sure that both our staff and the patrons of the community remain healthy and safe. And that's what we're using to make our decisions at this point. So I don't know if anybody else has had any experiences. Hopefully that's been positive. It was nice to hear someone who is raring to get back to the library. And as many of you know, the ALA, if you've gotten your emails recently, is starting to work together with some other entities. I think of the Institute of Museums and Libraries being one of the others and a couple others as well, to talk about resuming business practices and doing it in a safe way and what's some best practices to take into account. So I know that we'll all be looking forward to seeing some of those recommendations, as that will help impact how we look at opening and reviving services and the in-person kind for our community. And I think at that, I'll leave the president's remarks. And I would like to say thank you to all of the board members for being here in this new environment. And how often do I get a chance to have you all muted where you can't talk and I can? So fun times. But no, seriously, thanks. And it's great to see everybody, even if it's not in person. So let's go to, we can go right through public comment because we know that at this point, no one has asked for public comment. and has not addressed it earlier. So we're going to transition now to Brian giving the library director's report. Brian.
Thank you, Jess. I want to echo your thanks to the board. We very much appreciate the board's support and patience and guidance, leadership as we go through this. So thank you. Not all libraries are as fortunate as we are, so that means a lot to us. It means a lot to staff, to the public. I want to thank John for orchestrating the Zoom meeting here, and also town IT staff helped us do a dry run. We had some staff here help us do a second dry run, and I think that we're well prepared. So we think, and thanks to those of you who participated in the practice too. Just kind of a fun there's so much information to report. I want to be efficient, I guess, in this, but kudos to all staff for being creative and courageous and doing a great variety of things just to make the best of the situation and serve the community in new and innovative ways. So, building digital collections, delivering online programming. We started a chat service on our website. We're reaching out to homebound patrons. We're doing so many things. I can't tell you all those things that we're doing, but it's been amazing. It's really been fun to see how staff just rise up and serve the community in new and different ways. So I really appreciate all they're doing, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you also to our patrons, for your patience. We really want to open the doors and serve the public. We really want to, as Jess said, safety is what's guiding us, and we will phase into services as best we can in a safe manner once we get the go ahead to do so. So thank you for your patience, and please do look at our online offerings and reach out to us, of course, if we can do anything. Earlier today, Laura Goloszewski, our community engagement manager, she was asked to participate, to lead a webinar regarding services during this time. And the last I knew, she had over 350 attendees registered for that. And it was a statewide thing, maybe beyond state. I think it was statewide. But anyway, we've been hearing a lot of very positive compliments about what we're doing. And again, staff are doing a great job just stepping up, being creative, being courageous. So kudos to them again. In terms of my report, quickly, the accessible restroom project is at this time scheduled to begin next week. I've asked yesterday for confirmation on that. Still waiting for a confirmation, but hopefully that will begin then. The West Roof project began, delivery took place Friday. They worked for a day and a half this week, and it's partially done at the moment. It's buttoned up for this rainy time, but that work is ongoing. Our outreach vehicle arrived just in time to be parked in the deck for a long time, but we're glad to have it. Very excited. It will actually, I think, have quite a bit of use as we progress back through, back to normal operations. So probably some enhanced home delivery. We see that being used for maybe some other neat things too. The sensory app has been delayed. We look forward to getting that done, but that's not happening yet. On the agenda is the cost of living adjustment. The town council passed that on March 16th. That typically, or historically, I should say, the library board elects to stay on the same salary schedule as the town, so this would keep us on that same schedule. We had that on the March agenda, but we didn't have that meeting, so that's why we're having it now. The Illinois Public Library annual report. A lot of information goes into this, a lot of work. Kudos to John Fisher, Tori Malikan, and Jennifer Williams for all their work on that. It feels good to have this done. We can't begin it until April 1st, so getting it in the packet feels really good. And the deadline was extended. We wanted to hit the early deadline and get it in. So just again, I appreciate all their work on that. Executive session, 6-month review of executive session minutes as required. Again, this was on the March agenda, and we're going to go ahead and pick this up tonight. And then the annual insurance renewal. through Van Gundy, work with them throughout the year, really, in insurance, but a lot between February to April, looking at insurance for the next year. Rates are up a bit. There are always more requirements. One requirement this year is related to our abuse and molestation coverage. We need to have the abuse and prevention policy in place. Been in a conversation with other libraries, checked with the Children's Discovery Museum, Parks and Rec, just trying to get a sense of what other organizations who deal with children particularly have out there, and found that we're pretty early in this process of having this type of policy. And our legal advice was to take the template that we had and really make it much more concise and very, very specific to our environment. So that's the process that we're going through right now. So I double checked with the insurance. We're fine to approve that policy in May rather than tonight. And just the fact that we're making progress is really what needed to be seen. So we're in good shape there. And just a reminder on insurance, we did an RFP 3 to 4 years ago. Probably, I think we said we'd go about every 5 years or so. So that might be coming up here the next year or so for an RFP for insurance coverage. So unless there are any questions, that is my report.
Hi, Brian. I did have one question in regards to the library reopening. I saw a really lovely Facebook conversation going on between the library and the patrons. Where it was asked, like, what do you miss about the library? And people were giving ideas and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, of course, everybody is thinking about if curbside pickup is going to be a thing. And I read the library's response. Mm-hmm. And my question was regarding... they talked about how you guys were going to need the appropriate PPE before you were able to offer curbside. And one of the things I noticed when going through the library report was that you guys look like you bought a lot of gloves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know, since everything's like consolidated together, if like there was, I don't know, it was like 4 different things of gloves, and one of them was like 1,400, and there was like some smaller ones in there. Yeah. I didn't know if you got those early on in the process, and so you've probably like used through a lot of those gloves, or if there's a lot of gloves kind of like sitting at the library waiting for us to be able to use once we're going to need them. Yeah. And just knowing the availability of PPE, I was just wondering what kind of stock that the library still had.
Yeah. So none of those gloves have been used yet. So the person who ordered those gloves, he told me, so I accepted that delivery and I sent him a photo showing what arrived, and he said that there was a miscommunication between what he intended as a quantity and what was delivered. So we got more than we intended. Thus far, we've kept them. We may not hold on to all those. I was surprised that many gloves showed up, honestly, but we're not certain. As we'll talk a lot about this on new business in item A there, but there's a lot of differing opinions on gloves. So I think there's a lot of peace of mind for at least some staff in using gloves, and then also where we really use gloves now and likely in the future is cleaning the facility. So we buy gloves anyway, and during regular times, a lot of gloves for cleaning. So, and I should mention too, that we have various sizes of gloves within that order, just for different staff sizes. So, yeah, we did get a lot of gloves, not intentionally, but we do have them here still. Yeah. And then I'll talk about the other PPE in item A, if that's okay, as we look to prepare to reopen.
Okay, yeah, I happened to notice it looked like an awful lot of gloves, yeah, so I just
You were not the only one who was surprised, yeah.
I gotta know, because the curiosity's killing me, but how many gloves is $1,400 worth of gloves?
I can picture there's, mostly they're large. We have one, mostly they're large and medium, some small, some extra large. I don't remember the quantity off the top of my head, but yeah.
It just seems like a pallet of gloves.
Oh no, not quite. No, yeah, they pack pretty tight. Yeah, it's a lot of gloves. Yep. Any other questions?
And we'll go into foundation report. What do we know from our friends in the foundation?
Pam, you want me to go? Okay. Not a lot of news here, really. One thing I'll just, seems like a long time ago, but on March 10th, I remember we met with Peter Pearson. We had his final report, which is great information to have, I think. And I think a lot of good momentum out of that. So I appreciate that experience for everyone who was involved, particularly this board and the foundation board. Peter's great to work with, and impressed by everyone he worked with the day that he was here. I really appreciate how much he did that day. We really kept him busy, and he was really a trooper in that. So a lot of good will come of that work, I believe. Something else that seems like a long time ago, the Yule Ball was on March 7th, and some of you were there. We had a great turnout, really good event, a lot of fun. We learned a few things that we could help or use to help improve it next year. But really a great event that was very much appreciated by many people in the community. So that was a great thing. Unfortunately, we couldn't have our last book sale, which is a really big portion of what the foundation does. So we have ideas for how that might look as we can start to open up services again. Perhaps it's outside. There's some planning risk there, I guess, but maybe. So we're considering how to get that book sale to take place as soon as it's safe to do so.
It does seem like it was a lifetime ago for the Yule Ball, doesn't it? It's only what, last month? It was over a month and a half ago or so. Well, I guess we're at the end of the month. So now we'll go into new business. I'm going to make a recommendation that perhaps we switch and we put A at the bottom right before the 6th month, so that we can move through some standard businesses, if that's okay with everyone. I should have suggested that when we were doing review. Any concerns about going through the other items first? Okay. Then let's do our Illinois Public Library Annual Report, which is an action item first.
So just a reminder here, we're seeking your approval to submit the report. And I know there's one correction. I need to correct Pam's phone number. But then, so to submit it, I have to enter both Jess and JD's name as a signature and then submit it. So that's what we're seeking your approval for.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions on that? Yes, Terry.
I would just suggest I once had to do one myself. There's a lot of work involved in it, but actually it's kind of interesting to read it once it's done, not only from the standpoint of our library, but also to get some peer numbers. So I got very frustrated doing it myself. And why do they do all this? Turns out it's a good database that we can use during the year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else comment-wise? All those in
Wait,
favor,
who
please.
seconded? Who seconded?
Terry did.
Yeah, Terry. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Aaron was very close. It was almost a photo finish there. So, okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Okay, we have a unanimous. So, moving on to the next. All right. Next would be our insurance renewal. So, Brian, tell us about that, would you?
We are well covered, excuse me, in terms of insurance, which is good. We work with Van Gundy, as the library has for decades, honestly, and great service. Our coverage is through Cincinnati and Selective, two very good firms. So fortunately, we haven't had to use our insurance much this past year, which is always great and helpful. Unfortunately, rates go up a little bit each year, as they do everywhere, it seems. So the only real change was the need for the policy that I mentioned earlier. and with that comes some additional training. I reached out to CASA, just getting some. This requirement has, it's good. It's sparked the need or the desire to for me to ask questions about, how are we positioned, I guess, in terms of, potential abuse, et cetera. How are we training staff? What are our procedures, et cetera? We have, in our rules of conduct, we cover some of this content. In our harassment-free workplace policy, we cover some of this content too. But I think it does make sense to have this specific document to hone in on these topics. So this requirement will make us grow in a number of ways. I think that all that are good. So really pretty straightforward. We've added the second vehicle. Obviously, that's another change. As a commercial vehicle, there's some expense there. Beyond that, I don't think any other change to our coverage.
All right, I've got a quick question. As in, some auto insurers are rebating or reducing rates because people aren't driving their cars right now. And since the library's closed and we're not having patrons at the library nor employees, will our rates possibly be lowered because we're not doing business right now in the building?
I haven't heard anything. I can ask, certainly. So we do have some staff in the building. I'm here pretty much every day, and a number of staff. We're very well socially distanced. 3 or 4 of us in 44,000 square feet is pretty substantial. But during that time, just to remind you, we're having contractors in at times doing work. We had a small leak today that we had to fix that was related to our sprinkler system. So there's still all these mechanical things to ensure, just throwing that out there, that the facility lives on even though there aren't as many people in it. So
will a new roof help us at all?
It will. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so. Yes, but I'll ask that question.
So any further questions? So would someone like to make a motion to approve that we go forward on this new insurance policy?
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Was that Caitlin? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I was looking down at the time and it cut out on me as you said something, so I couldn't pick up the voice. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. All right. That's unanimous, so that is approved. We now move on to our next action item, which is the COLA, cost of living expense. In your packet, it's at the end, right after the last one we were just talking about, the insurance. And as Brian has mentioned, we have in the past tried to mirror what the city has done. Brian, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, just a couple reminders. So it is a 0.3%, and we do budget for cost of living adjustments each year when we do the budget. There's an opportunity based on CPI for an April 1st COLA and an October 1st COLA. So it is this amount is budgeted. It's within our budget right now. So.
Any additional?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you, Pam. Do we have a second? Thank you, Jim. So we have any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. All in favor? All right, unanimous. So let us now go to our discussion.
Thank you real quick for that. We appreciate that. Helps keep our salaries competitive, which is huge for us in keeping a great team. So thank you. We appreciate that, and we don't take it for granted. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Let us now go into the COVID-19 plan, which is discussion item. And that's sort of the nice big bucket. So, Brian, you want to start us off? Anything you'd like to share?
I have hours to share. I'll whittle it down. So I have what I think is most relevant to this discussion. I'm in conversations with. Well, I can use today as an example. So today I spoke to the director of the Bloomington Public Library, trying to make sure that we're aligned. I was part of a phone call with the Peoria area directors. Again, everyone trying to see what each other's doing and aligning. Yesterday, I was on a call with all the town department heads and Pam Reese. In the morning, I was on a call with Beth Wisman and Doug Damery, so head of Discovery Museum and Parks and Rec. So there's certainly this desire to help each other, be prepared and learn and do the right things at the right time. And again, just that sense of being aligned so that we phase through this in a way that makes sense, and we don't have one library totally open, one library totally closed, trying to kind of balance, and then also I think create reasonable expectations. Everything's not going to open up tomorrow, so how do we get there and kind of manage? I think there's a certain amount of anxiety, out in the community. Jess mentioned the IMLS study on handling returns on materials coming back. That's key for us because we're prepared to quarantine items for 72 hours, which we think is, based on what we know now from the CDC, the longest term that we'd have to quarantine items. So we've developed a plan to quarantine on site, cycle through those items, and we're talking about curbside service, of course, as many places are. There's a lot of strong opinions on kind of every element, really, of these choices, I think. Safety first is certainly how we're approaching this. We want to keep staff safe and make sure they have the proper PPE. What are some challenges as we think about curbside service? Just kind of physically how we're set up is a challenge. We get to kind of a pinch point pretty quickly with providing service at the north end of our building there, and there are vehicles still coming through. It gets crowded in a hurry. We want to keep staff safe, from vehicles as well, and the public. We want to provide a touch-free transaction as much as possible. A lot of variables. So soon you will see some communication from us reaching out to patrons who have holds on items and asking them just to, please look at your hold requests, and if there are any of those that you no longer want, please go ahead and cancel those so that we can minimize any holds that are no longer desired by patrons. And once we open up delivery and processing of system-wide holds, there's going to be a lot. So anything that we can do to minimize that will help us and help lots of other libraries too. So just trying to be sensitive to all these needs and wants out there. As we look ahead to having more staff come back in the building, we have to social distance, obviously. We're looking at workspaces.
Wait. Do I have to note that she left the meeting? 5:59. Caitlin!
Feeling she'll be back.
Where did you go? Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
We can put Mishka in there if we need to. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So as we look to get more staff in the building, kind of ramping up operationally, we've paused all of our deliveries of new items. All the deliveries of holds from other libraries have been paused as well. So there's a lot of questions of how do we restart some of these pieces in a way, and making sure that as we introduce more staff back into the building, that they have the appropriate space, appropriate PPE, they're safe, etc. And here comes Caitlin. And again, how do we keep going? Thanks, Caitlin. The online portion of what we're doing for those who just want that, for one. And we've talked for years about a lot of patrons only use the virtual branch. I think it's probably grown, certainly, just in terms of the number of overall users like that. But certainly now I think we're going to see a lot more hybrid users who do a lot. They want to do the physical service, but they sure like the online as well. So we don't want to lose sight of how important that is into the future. So how do we enable staff who can do the programming, et cetera, from home and develop those collections to keep doing what they're doing, but then also start to build in staff operationally to prepare for curbside service, returns coming back, et cetera. Once we open the doors to the public, we assume that there are significant social distancing parameters in place, probably a limit to the number of patrons who can be here. How do we manage the queue of patrons who can't come in until it's their turn? Again, think about our parking lot and where people will queue up. There's a challenge there, a safety concern. We're talking about, if necessary, removing a lot of furniture or kind of clustering furniture to allow for the most social distancing as possible. We're aware that we might see a lot of new users who really need to use computers, printers, et cetera, because they've lost their job since we've closed. How do we help them navigate, maybe technology, maybe just the service of going in to apply for unemployment or apply for positions, whatever it might be. So we're anticipating that whole pool of new users too, and how do we best serve them within this with appropriate social distancing. And I think a lot of our staff might find themselves doing some different things, frankly, as we move through these phases, and which I think a lot of them will really enjoy. But one, as always, space is a challenge. Our parking lot, there's going to be a lot going on in our parking lot, I think, and we want to keep everyone safe. And then in our building, we want to make the most of that. But if we just imagine the circulation desk and the new books, well, right away, that has to look different. If we have people staying 6 feet apart from each other, wanting to browse new books, so to reorient probably that shelving, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of variables. We're looking at every aspect that we can think of. We're seeing some really good phased plans of reopening come out from some libraries in Illinois, so that's good. We're looking at those for examples, developing our own right now. We have a small core team, the reopening team. We're going to add to that this week, and then start to assign certain tasks to different groups, different teams. And we're on our way, certainly, but again, letting safety guide us and waiting for any additional word from the governor or local authorities in terms of what we can or cannot do. So, any questions? I should look at my notes. Let's see. Yeah, I hit all of them. Again, the IMLS study is big because if quarantining returns is not required, that's great for our workflow. It just allows us to move those items through the system, get them checked in, allow other patrons to use them more quickly. How we do curbside, there's a lot of options there, a lot of different models. So we want to make that, as I mentioned, as touchless as possible. But again, there's going to be a pinch point there as we have a lot of staff out there and cars queuing up and then cars wanting to go through. So curbside's tricky for us. Curbit works really well because it's typically one vehicle, maybe two, but a pretty significant flow of curbside is something that we'll have to really think about and look at using our property in a way as much as possible to make sense. One limitation is bringing the materials in and out of the building and then having technology with power set up to circulate items. So there's a lot of variables. I have a feeling that we'll learn as we go, certainly. But we're working hard on planning for the best options that we can offer.
That pinch point issue, have you looked at how, like as a model, the way that the farmers market is distributing orders? They have people come in a half-hour allotted time, park along a specific street.
Yeah.
They put their last name on a piece of paper in the passenger side window, and then their order is deposited in their trunk.
We've talked about. I think that's a great idea. The question that we've asked and we're a little stuck on is how successful can we be in our patrons sticking to a prescribed time or a window? And something I didn't mention, but ideally we would love that idea. Yeah, but that's the question. We're just trying to be realistic too. Like, what about all the people who are coming that we kind of walk up, drive up, I guess, like just coming in, they didn't know we were limited to drive up. But ideally, we would aim for a system like that where it is predictable. We thought of a number of models that could help limit or prescribe, when people are coming. Fortunately, we have the 2 lots too, so we can split that way. In some ways, the trouble with the leased lot is there's not really the nearest entry is kind of a ways away. So we've talked about, do we get some pretty good sized tents, for example, like Parks and Rec, really commercial tents that could provide a spot for staff. So that would be great. If we can control the flow, that would certainly make things a lot easier. We've even thought about, are there other places physically, can we take things in our vans and go out and kind of help break it up in that way? So talking through all that, and that reminds me too that we want to be sensitive to vulnerable populations. So when we do open up, we would love to offer the easiest hours I throw out there are 7 to 9 in the morning. Now, I don't know when we do open what hours will be open, but that seems to be, in general, kind of it seems to work in this community, the earlier hours for the vulnerable populations. But we ask the question, maybe the best thing to do for the vulnerable populations is to not have them come here at all. Maybe we take items to them, we really ramp up our home delivery, and they don't have to navigate. We're saving on the, potentially on some of these issues that we're just limited on space. Maybe some users would be more likely to, or would appreciate or feel safer having materials delivered to them, which we would just drop off, on their porch or whatever it might be, rather than, it's a lot of people are scared to come to the library or to go anywhere. That's just a fact. So we're really thinking a lot about the vulnerable populations, our home delivery patrons, and having that second vehicle really it's kind of empowered us to do, obviously at least twice as much. We would limit to 1 staff member per vehicle, but we think we can do a lot with that. In terms of hours, something else that I'm thinking about, I guess, is if we can only let so many people in the building at once, then that might naturally expand our hours in some way, and which could work if we're limited in the number of staff that we can have. So there's just a lot of questions, and part of it is what parameters are we given, and then how do we best serve the public within those and keep staff safe. So we're going to make several different scenarios, just to choose from. But whatever those are initially, I'm sure they'll grow over time. But and just like Aaron, like you mentioned, if you all are aware of models that work really well, please let us know. And I think what makes those work well is the communication piece being convenient and timely, and then the customer or the patron making that commitment to show up during that time. And then we just have to have a plan where we know it's kind of how do we handle the people outside of the system that we develop, I guess, knowing that we're going to have that. How do we best handle that? And again, that might be where the having the 2 separate lots comes into play, or we take our show on the road to some extent. So, or a hybrid of all of this. So, let's see. One other factor is just probably have patrons enter on the north side and exit on the south side. Again, just to control social distancing, the number of people in the building, etc. So then there's 2 staff right there, right off the bat, who are dedicated to those functions. So a lot of variables.
Can you remind us what the current plan for summer reading is going to be now that we've got this new environment?
Yeah, we have a team dedicated to summer reading, and everything's going to look different this summer, I think. And we plan to start a bit later. We are preparing to purchase books for every participant. So every participant will get 1 book. So instead of the book bonanza being on the end, it'll be on the beginning. and get a book in the hands of kids. We're talking to Unit 5. We're talking to Discovery Museum. We're looking for grant opportunities. Can we buy more books along the way? We're not sure yet, but these conversations are heading the right direction, I would say. A lot of it will probably be online. There will be different types of activities happening. We've talked about the idea of, in terms of a shift, maybe instead of participants getting prizes from local merchants who have supported us for years, we might ask that our participants support our local businesses who have been sponsors for years. Just, reach out, thank them, visit those businesses and help them, help the local economy and the local businesses. So we don't know, not knowing when we can get physical items to people is certainly a challenge for some reading. So the way that we're planning now is pretty much really investing heavily, assuming that it's online only at this point. With that one we don't even know how that physical book gets in the hands of the participants at this point. We're confident at some point we'll get that to happen, but we're looking at, for the sake of planning, July 1st, having some sense of confidence that we can have some physical transactions by that point. Certainly different. Summer reading there's so much build up to summer reading and just things that we're all that are hardwired into us, and it feels really odd to have it, potentially, certainly start at least a month later, but not have, the rush of kids in right away, and that's such a fun time for us. So.
Other questions for Brian or about what we're doing, or concerns that board members might have?
Please let us know anything that you hear, from friends, neighbors, family, any ideas you see, other establishments that work. We would love to benchmark off what works, and we have some unique variables, obviously, but we think that we can. We have the staff certainly to make anything, I think, work as best as it can. So, but please let us know your thoughts.
Terry.
I think with summer reading, it would be particularly important to coordinate with BPL. Their facility is laid out differently. They can do some things easier than we can, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you're talking with the other libraries in the region, and especially BPL, and especially for summer reading.
Yeah.
Just so people could understand it once, and it would apply to our entire newspaper and listening area.
Yeah. BPL they're set up very well for curbside delivery. Actually, if you think of their facility, the overhang, so they're out of the weather. It works really well. One thing that I proposed to Jeannie Hamilton earlier today was that if our hours are limited at all when we start, let's be sure to offset those. So if Bloomington's open, certain days or times, then we'd be open other days and times, so that we're providing as much library service to the community as we can. So,
thank you.
Anything else? Okay, in that case, let's move on to our final new business item for the evening, which would be the 6-month review and approval of executive session minutes for section 2C 2.1. Had to look at the paper for that one.
JD, I'm in the boardroom. Do you need anything from the files? Okay, I'm going to ask John to put me in the waiting room while you have your executive session, which he would do with anyone else who doesn't belong in the executive session. And then, Jess, we have to figure out how to. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Well, we didn't move to go into executive session. I just want you all to know that. So I move to enter the executive session for the 6-month review approval of executive session minutes, section 2C21 for action.
Second.
Okay, so now we just need a motion to, you got to say it all. No shirking. Motion to not release the minutes. Or if that's what you choose. Yeah. Are you all just looking at me? Weirdos? Oh, that should not be on the board.
Yes.
I'm not typing that.
Yes, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm just
Okay.
talking away. As you said it, my thing popped up. It's like, you're still on mute. So Zoom even knew I was messing up on that one. Sorry. I'm just, Terry, go ahead.
I move to keep all the executive session minutes in executive session and not release any minutes at this time.
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
And we have a unanimous approval. Right. So that is the last under new business. Under unfinished business, I don't see that we have anything. There was none on our agenda. So moving into suggested items for the next agenda. Yes, Perry.
I just want to say I am amazed and impressed at our director and our staff and their creativity, and they don't whine or complain, at least not to us. But they figure creative things to do, and they make good use of their time. And I can tell you that our community is very impressed with the effort from the people I've talked with. So thank you, Brian and staff. We appreciate it. Can we do anything to help you guys?
Honestly, I feel good. We appreciate the support of the board. We're so fortunate, and staff they express that. So I want to be sure to share that, and I certainly do too. Your input and ideas expectations are so valuable. So I would just ask, please don't be shy and let us know. We want to be safe. It's such a balance trying to be as safe as possible and to serve as much as possible. And I think we're probably coming up on a point of friction, I think, for that. So we just appreciate your support through that. And I'll certainly be reaching out to you as we approach, flipping the switch on anything or thresholds, whatever it might be. But I'll ask you, when I need to know how you feel about something, I'll certainly ask you. So I would just ask that you, keep your eye on your email and respond, but also just proactively let us know what you're thinking. There's no crazy idea, so please let us know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, and you've mentioned this before, but you also seek the advice of the McLean County Health Department, and you lean on the experts for data and science and best practices, to make the best decisions.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Pam. Yeah, certainly we're trying, and that's part of the challenge, is just trying to be informed, I guess, constantly, and there's so much coming. But also McLean County Emergency Management, we are making 3D printing, various items with our several printers we've put in staff's homes, and bought more filament, et cetera, so we can create things for the front care or the frontline healthcare workers. So that's been neat to see staff step up and do that too. So.
Have we been tracking the amount that we have provided, just as a sort of, I know where I'm at, we're doing something similar, so we want to kind of keep track so that we have an idea of the impact that we might be able to make.
Yeah, I don't know the current number. John might. John, if you do, please chime in.
I do not have the current number, but I know that Ferris is keeping count.
Okay. Good. Because I think that's something nice to share with the community too, that again, just another way that during this, where the library continued to provide service to the community.
Yeah, and I'll add too that we just put together a team to start making masks per CDC specifications, and we're making plenty for staff, obviously, but also making we're building some stock for patrons. So, assuming that some might want to come in and not have the mask, or they forgot it, or whatever it might be. So we're trying to prepare ahead of time for patrons' needs in terms of masks too.
That's a good segue too, and something we didn't talk about when we're talking about the plan is, have you sort of established what to do when someone is unwilling to comply with guidelines?
So we've had the general, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the general question of how do we manage friction, et cetera, for whatever reason. If we don't allow someone in because we've exceeded or we're at our limit in terms of number of people who can come in, if they're not social distancing, if they don't want to wear a mask, we don't have good answers yet. I think that our natural approach is to kind of be an ambassador and help make that situation as successful and healthy as it can be. I think we'll probably we'll build that into our plan, and in terms of having the right ratio of staff. If the queue is 50 people long, we probably want more than one staff member out there, and we can make good use of that queue, for example. And if there's children, we can look at to keep them busy and help them be engaged, things like that. So just like we've done with the online limitations, I think how do we make the most of these opportunities we have with our patrons and keep them all safe and healthy? It's certainly on our list, these points of friction, and I can't say that we have a great way at the moment, but we're planning towards those. So we know they're coming, frankly, but and again, that's the space limitation and the presumed desire to be in the library, or even just to get curbside service. We want to manage that in a safe way, and early on, especially, it might be a little tricky. And that's where Aaron's suggestion of if we could manage that flow to some extent, that would really help us. We'll see. Part of this will just be trial and error, and some other libraries will probably learn more quickly and share hopefully what they learn, and we'll learn and share. So it's just like, a couple months ago, Zoom meetings were not that common to some people, and now they're very common to a lot of people. We've used them for a number of years, occasionally, not near as much as we do now, but we'll learn as we go. But it's a concern, just how to handle friction. And we've also talked about if we're limiting the number of computers, for example, or even limiting, sitting in the library, frankly, how do we provide as much opportunity to get out of the library what some people want the library for? So a lot of patrons come and sit in the library and read the newspaper, read magazines, or read books, and that's their experience. And we don't want to say there's no seating at the library, but we have to be conscious of just providing a limited amount of seating. And again, same with computers. We have 4 computers clustered together. Well, that won't work. So how do we maximize our technology? Do we go to all laptops? Do we check them out, etc.? We've tried pushing our Wi-Fi signal out to the parking lot. It doesn't reach very far, unfortunately. But how do we just make the most of what we have? And it's tricky, to be honest. So.
Thank you. Any else for the good of the order? So for agenda item, I'm going to suggest that one of the action items that we have on the agenda is COVID-19, just as a placeholder for the moment. Brian, I don't know if you're hearing from other libraries if they've had to make any sort of emergency policy adjustments to address some of these things. I don't know if the legal folks have started to lay in on saying, hey, you should have something that says, hey, we're making a change. Our policy is normally X, but for the duration of this incident, we're doing Y. And it also just bringing out for everyone to think about too. So if something comes up and we need to do like an emergency meeting before we go full out because we need to address some items just to kind of keep everybody on their radar. Oh, we might have to get together for like a one item issue for discussion to pass. I haven't heard anything on that regard yet, at least on the library side. So
Yeah, we, our personnel policy, for example, in terms of the emergency closing, we could add some language there that would be helpful. And that's where we've seen some new information, but it's been new for everyone, frankly. So I think having some flexibility has certainly helped us during this time, but I think we could certainly add more on that emergency closing, just how that works. And I have some language in mind for that.
okay. If it would be helpful, that'd be something else that we could add on the next agenda,
Yeah.
either as a discussion item or as an action item if you've got something you'd like to bring forward for consider.
Thank you.
Any other additional action or agenda items? Excuse me. Okay, just a reminder, our next meeting is May 27th, 2020. I'm going to suggest we are probably going to Zoom it at this point. And that might be the best way to assume. I assume at this point that will still be legally available to us as an option, unless you know something that I don't know, Brian. That's good. So, as they say, same bat time, same bat channel, back in the 60s. So, with that, is there anything else? Otherwise, gavel is banged. We are adjourned. Thank
Stay
you all.
well, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good